Hi, everybody. This is Allan Wright with Zephyr Conferences, and I'm here with Sara Pletcher, who is on my team. And we are on the week 3 of our 10-week video series on marketing for small businesses in the food, wine, and beer industries. This week is surveying your customers. Extremely important and something we've been doing for 24 years. We've been very, very keen on surveying and have a lot of experience with this, and so I think we have a lot to share. I'm going to start out. Sara, go ahead and click on our slides, and then Sara's going to take over with some of the more detailed aspects because she is our operations manager and does the surveying for all 5 of our wine, food, and beer conferences. Why survey your customers? Well, the most common thing is to analyze their experience, right? How are they feeling about your product or your tasting or tap room or your restaurant or what have you? Measure your customer loyalty. Are they a first-time customer? Are they a repeater? Are they planning to come back? Collect data. That's a marketing issue. Can you collect data from your customers via surveys and then use it? And we'll talk more about that coming up. Acquire feedback on your products. This is one that we're going to talk about multiple times in this short video, and because it's very important and not done nearly enough to actually find out what people think about your individual food, wine, or beer products. And finally, a 5th one that we love to do, but I don't see done that often, is that we actually involve our customers in the decision-making. On the tour sides of our business, we have 3 tour companies. We often ask people, what tour locations should we add next year? And in the conference, we're asking our alumni, our participants, who should speak and what should the topics be? So that's the first section, surveying best practices. This first one is the be-all and end-all of surveying best practices. If you don't know what you're going to do with the answers to a question, don't include it in the survey. That's how you create a survey that's short enough that people will answer. It's too easy to just add in extra questions because you think it'd be interesting, but you don't know what you would do with the answers. Create a standard scale and standard questions and repeat them. Event after event, time after time, year after year. We can still compare our very first tour in 1997, what the guides rated, what the restaurants rated, what the hotels rated on a 5-point scale with the same location that we run in 2021. And it's fantastic for that comparison across year and across product as well. Open-ended versus closed questions. It's nice to have a little of both. I like closed-ended questions, which are data-driven. Then people say yes or no, 1, 2, or 3, very likely, somewhat likely, unlikely, and you can analyze that very easily. It's good to have a few open-ended questions for letting people say what they really think and also for using their text responses, for example, in your marketing. Respond to anyone who has complaints or questions. The worst thing is if you put a survey out and someone asks you a question or gives you a complaint and they never hear back. So you have to follow up. You can consider offering a giveaway. You don't want that to pollute the validity of the results by only having certain people do it or having people fill out a survey just because they want the giveaway. But it can help participation. Ask, but don't require their contact information. If you don't get contact information, you can't use the information for marketing purposes, but you don't want that to limit the number of people taking the survey. And act timely with the results. It's too easy to have a survey taken and then sit on the results, and by the time you get around to it, they're not even valid anymore. Survey methods. Generally, you have 2 options here. One is the old paper method, and one is electronic. You can still do the paper method, and sometimes people are more apt to fill that out if you put a physical card or a tent on a tabletop. But obviously, data in digital form has lots of advantages. And there are multiple ways to get it: via email to your database, via social media requests that point people to a certain URL, in your tap room, tasting room, or restaurant. You can have electronic surveys that pop up when people log into your Wi-Fi. If you send them an email receipt, you can point them to URLs via signs. You used to be able to hand out iPads and have them do directly on that, but with COVID, we don't recommend that anymore. And when to survey people is important. One option is to do an ongoing survey, which is easy to do in a tap room, a tasting room, or a restaurant. You just are constantly asking people for their opinion. Another option, if that's overwhelming to you or to them, is to do it every once in a while. For example, you have a survey week and you tell everybody, and the waiters tell the restaurant goers, hey, we're in survey week. Would you mind rating your meal for us? And that can be very effective and get you very good data. So those are the sort of the intros to surveying. I'm going to pass it over to Sara for a little bit more of the details.
Thanks. So what your survey should ask. The experience. A lot of people want to know the comfort and the ambiance of the restaurant or the tap room or tasting room, how the service was, the knowledge of the bartender. Andrew talked a lot last week about education behind the beer or the wine. And then anything you care about. You want to ask them about your pricing, or if you had games or activities for kids, the style of your glassware, and make sure that it's specific to your tap room, and so that you get specific results and answers that you want to can utilize. And if you're a food producer, if you have a storefront, a brick and mortar, you can ask all these same questions. The next, your product. And have it be more than how was the food or how was the beer. Be specific. And if you do that survey week, maybe rate everything on your menu and rate each beer, wine, or food product. And then you get a really good sense of what your customers are looking for. And if something doesn't score well, perhaps it should come off your menu. And we find this to be the most important and particularly the most overlooked aspect of a survey. You can also use those external sources like Untapped and ratebeer.com, but know that those are pretty biased and they're just specific to what the consumer is drinking. It might not be exactly what you're looking for. Another option too is if you have an experimental product and you want to get some feedback, make sure you're just comparing that experimental product to the previous experimental products that you've had prior. Customer loyalty. We want to know if the customer is going to return, how many times they visited your tap room or tasting room. Would they recommend your establishment to others? And SurveyMonkey, a typical online survey provider, they have this question called a Net Promoter Score. It will tell your customers' brand loyalty, and it'll walk you through. It's a standard question you can just add right in there. So the data that you want to collect. Make sure you ask for their name, zip code, and email address, but make it optional. You definitely don't want to require that information. And if you're going to do any kind of marketing via email, then collect the email address. If you're going to do text message marketing, then collect the phone number. And but there's no real need to collect gender and age unless you're going to segment out that information and then market to them specifically. So perhaps leave that off your survey. And then, of course, once you get that information, make sure you put it into your marketing list database, whether it's MailChimp or whatever you use to email out your specials. And then, of course, you want to ask, how did the customer learn about you? And would they refer you to others? And you can have a referral program. You might have to offer an incentive to do that, or a referral program, but that's definitely an option. And then make sure you ask, can we quote you? If somebody has something really nice to say about you and you want to put it in your marketing pieces or on your website, social media, you want to have permission to do that. This is what you should not ask on your survey. Industry trends. It's not really necessary to ask how many breweries or wineries they've visited in the last 30 days if you're not going to use that information. You're not doing a survey on wine drinking habits in America. And ask questions for which you will use the information, as we've stated many, many times. What to do with the results? Add them to your database. Far too often, you might get a paper survey, and once they're collected, they might just sit on someone's desk. But you want to make sure that you analyze those results and put them in a format that your coworkers can see, that you can look year over year or product over product. Respond to questions and bad reviews. If somebody leaves their contact information and they have a question or they have a complaint, make sure you follow up with them. Benchmark yourself over time from year over year. And again, same with your products. Make sure you're looking at whether how this wine rated from previous vintages. And then again, the Net Promoter Score on survey, and then assign an employee to analyze your results. That's what I do. I look at all the surveys from all the conferences, and we break down the content, the events. If something doesn't score well, we're not going to ask that speaker to come back, or we're not going to do that event again. But if it did, then we might have that speaker come back at a different conference and apply their presentation to a different audience. Implement the changes. So don't take this personally. Allan, do you want to talk about your cocktail experience?
Yeah, I walked into a bar one time in Boulder, Colorado that featured high-end cocktails, and I had two friends with me, and the three of us decided to order 3 different cocktails and taste test them. This was pre-COVID. We did, and before telling each other what we thought, we all rated them in our minds, and 2 of the 3 we loved. One of the 3 we all thought was not very good. We ended up calling the owner over, who one of my friends knew, and told him about this. And I asked him, does this kind of information affect his decision-making at all? And he said no, because there were always some people that would like any cocktail he put out there on his menu. And after he walked away, I explained my theory of surveying to my 2 friends, which is that he's got a product on his menu that a lot of people don't probably like. In our case, it was 3 out of 3. And people are going to come into his restaurant, order that, not have anything else, and never come back again. And it's just a great example of why you need to survey and why you actually have to pay attention to the results that you get.
Yeah, so in that instance, if the bartender was offended that Allan and his friends didn't like the cocktail and he created the recipe, he's going to still leave it on the menu, and it might not sell. And so don't take offense to the criticism that you're asking for, constructive criticism that you're asking for. And finally, potentially you can broadcast your results. 2 weeks ago, Allan talked about website and SEO and content creation. This is a perfect idea. If you have a survey week or you get a really good review, write a blog post about it, put it out there. Let people know what was your top rated food item on your menu for the year. And you might see sales increase specifically for that because people want to try what other people like. And so with that, I hand it back over.
So that's a very quick 11 minutes of education for all of you on surveying. We know there's a lot more to be discussed, but we hope that will help you in your own business or where you're doing marketing. If you like what we're doing and you like the information, or if you think we could be doing something a little differently, let us know. Put a comment on our posts or send us an email back in return when we send this out to you. It helps us to know if this is actually useful to all of you. Next week, we're going to talk about something that's very related, which is those external rating systems like RateBeer and Yelp and things like that. That'll be week 4 of our 10-part series. Thank you, Sara, for joining me this week, and thank you to all of you for paying attention.
Thank you.